Good afternoon. I'm Dennis Vitorian, and this is the 25th hour, helping you stay on top of everything that happened beyond the 24/7 news cycle. It's been almost 8 months now since Eric Adams has been elected New York City mayor, and we've had some polling taking the temperature on how New Yorkers feel about the self-proclaimed mayor with swagger. A lot of news has come and gone looking at how Adams has handled gun crime, his relationship with Albany, and even what the mayor's up to in the city's nightlife. Helping us parse through everything, this episode features an exclusive interview with Jeff Coltin, who just so happens to be the first guest re-interviewed for the show. Jeff is the City Hall Bureau Chief for City and State, one of the foremost publications covering New York news and politics. You can find him covering New York City's politicos at City Hall, throwing questions at Mayor Adams, and even throwing the first pitch recently for the Brooklyn Cyclones. Jeff, happy to have you on the show again.
Thanks for having me back. I really appreciate the vote of confidence, just as the Brooklyn Cyclones gave me a vote of confidence by giving me the ball before the game.
You see, so we can't go wrong here, Jeff. So let me just launch first into what we're going to talk about here today. Now, whether it's swagger, calling demonstrators clowns, yelling at the press, Eric Adams keeps getting into trouble for what he says. So how do we feel about a recent quote from New York Magazine saying Adams is just winging it?
I want to give credit to the author of that story, David Friedlander, one of my favorite reporters, writers in New York, and a competitor of mine, definitely. That was a fantastic article. It really got people talking, and so much of it was true. And yet that part, the mayor winging it, I guess, the mayor is winging it. That it is true. But the thing is, everybody is winging it as mayor of New York City. What prepares you for this job? What prepares you for a workforce of 350,000 people and being the nominal leader of a city of 9 million and a suburban area of 20 million, and all these people across the country that love New York and want to follow it, or hate New York and want to follow it, and watch Fox News and learn about New York City burning to the ground because of our crime policies. It is a huge job. I mean, many people say it is the second biggest job in politics, short of being president of the United States. Nobody's prepared for that. So yes, the mayor is winging it, but we do talk so much about what the mayor says, his jokes, his gaffes, his insulting comments. This is all super important. Let's be clear. It is my job to listen to the mayor, to interpret what he says, to hold him accountable. But let's be honest. I mean, what the mayor says, whatever he says at a press conference, it is less important than what he does, who he appoints, what his government implements. Mm-hmm. And look, I mean, that's a bigger question. That's a bigger question about how the government is implementing right now. It is too early in many cases, or in many cases, you could say the Adams administration has shown us exactly who they are, and we know what's happening. We did see the recreation of the gun violence unit. We see bringing back homeless sweeps, trying to get people off the streets and into shelters. That's a bigger debate, I'll say. But yes, I guess broad point is, yeah, I think the mayor is winging it, but anybody would be. This is a crazy job, and Lord, we saw how much Bill de Blasio changed from 2014 to 2021, and now just this week to when he dropped out of the congressional race. It is a big job, and it wears you down.
Yeah, and I mean, you started touching upon it a little bit. I mean, we can forget for a second what Adams is saying, and you started talking about his focus on gun crime, which, I mean, he could probably say that that's the number one issue that he campaigned on, and that's what voters ended up getting him in for. His homelessness sweeps, which are controversial. So, I mean, some would say pay less attention to what the mayor says and more on what Mayor Adams does. And can we gauge how well Adams is doing just based on his actions alone right now?
Look, again, being mayor is an absolutely huge job. So you do need to focus in on smaller pieces. Education has been a really big topic here. There's been an ongoing fight over the education budget. The mayor, to oversimplify a very complicated discussion, the mayor basically says, yeah, we're going to give schools a little bit less this year because there's fewer students. And a lot of, people that care about those schools, whether it be parents or teachers, they're saying that maybe works on a macro level, but look at our school. Our school is getting less money. What are you doing here? This is crazy. so that's just one little example of maybe the mayor doing something that he thought was a pretty easy decision and getting a lot of pushback. Yes, with crime, that's been a huge focus of the mayor. It's been rhetorically his number one focus, and in practice, he's definitely been more involved with the police department than any other agency, I would say. Look, crime numbers are up this year. I don't completely blame the mayor for that. I mean, that's a very complicated mix of things that causes crime. And also, even when you say crime numbers, that's a more complicated issue than it first seems. I haven't checked recently, but last time I checked, murders were down year over year. Shootings were down year over year. We're going on a good trend there in New York City. Thank goodness, fewer people getting shot, fewer people dying. That is a huge win. The number of larcenies is up, but there's more robberies, there's more burglaries, that kind of stuff. That really does make people very uneasy. People are worried. People are losing their belongings. Stores are getting broken into. That's a serious problem. But again, I don't blame the mayor for that. I think it's one piece, and his department is going to have to find a way to respond to that.
So is the honeymoon period over for Mayor Adams? I mean, no, because he's already, I guess, starting to do something about the numbers. I don't know about how the people of New York City feel, but in terms of the raw stats, I think we're starting to see something go in a downward slope. But as you pointed out, in terms of other types of crimes, those numbers are maybe going up a little bit, and that's where I think I want to put my finger on the heartbeat of the city for a second. I mean, so are New Yorkers ready to blame Adams for anything going on, or are they still giving him a little bit more time to try to settle into the role at this point?
New Yorkers are definitely ready to blame Adams. I am giving him. I'm trying to be very careful here and give a broad picture. But if you talk to somebody on the street, yeah, he's the mayor. They're going to blame him for whatever the heck. And, he knows that and he accepts that. And Adams welcomes it. Sometimes he'll say, oh, don't blame me. I'm perfectly imperfect, whatever. But yes, people are definitely ready to blame the mayor. That's just part of the job. As I was kind of talking about before, it's such a hard job. He wanted it. All right. And I think, some things are absolutely fair to blame the mayor for. If you're unhappy about homeless folks on the street, whether from the perspective of get these people off my street, or from the perspective of, oh my God, this is a humanitarian crisis and I wish there were a place for them to sleep. Either of those really, they're fixable problems. I mean, it's a big problem, but it is fixable. And these are things that it is fair to blame the city for, and want the city to respond in a different way, or try a different technique or more effective, whatever. So broad answer, people are ready to blame Adams. We saw the poll numbers from a month ago or so. They're way down. People were excited about Adams at first. There's definitely been a broadly a sense of, people are maybe less hyped about him, and now are just kind of well, yep, he's the mayor, he's the guy. Yeah. That doesn't mean that I think he's in danger of losing re-election yet. I mean, we'll see when 2025 comes around. But it's going to be a tough ride. It's going to be a tough ride.
And not for nothing, like you said, the guy wanted the job. He put himself out there as someone who has solutions, someone who takes those solutions seriously. He painted progressives as having their heads in the clouds. And I mean, he's definitely active, right? I mean, he's been out there basically delivering press conferences on a myriad of issues. His schedule's always jam-packed. He's even partying it up with celebrities, in the city's nightclubs. But, in terms of funneling it down a little bit, I mean, what is Adams trying to make his signature achievement within the first year? Because when we look at other mayors, I mean, for example, de Blasio, his universal pre-K always comes up. I mean, that was something he was gunning for. He got it done. So I mean, we always hear about Adams talking about gun crime, but he also has his campaign bringing awareness about dyslexia. So is there something that he's trying to make his first year achievement, to your knowledge?
Look, nothing immediately comes to mind. I think you're right. The dyslexia program could be a real legacy issue. But I mean, look, the mayor's only talked about that, as far as I can tell, like once or twice in the past 7 months. So that's not a defining achievement yet in any way. I guess his goal, more than anything else, is to make New Yorkers safer. Feel safer. I don't know if he's helping them feel safer. He's talking a lot about how dangerous it is out here. But I really do think public safety is the main focus, whether that is his approach of trying to stop guns from coming into the city. He tried to change the bail laws in Albany. There's definitely an open debate on whether those bail laws really have any effect on crime, to be clear. But that is what Adams thinks, and that is what he was trying to do. So I will give him credit for, he was trying. Again, bail laws didn't get changed much, not nearly to what he wanted to see this year. So it always comes back to crime. That seems to be his main focus. There's a lot of other things the mayor's doing. Let's be clear. He's talked about, he released a housing program. He's talking about building more housing. That of course takes a while. That's not an immediate program. That's going to be, a legacy thing. It's going to take a few years to see changes. And my gosh, I mean, again, being mayor, it's a huge job. I'm sure there's so many other things. Even just, he just had his first budget passed. We didn't see any top line, big, exciting thing that I can think of. It was more about, here and there, more money for this, cuts restored. Nothing to the level of universal pre-K.
It almost looks like when we're trying to cut a little bit beneath the surface, Adams is still trying to find a way to effectively learn how to govern the city. And it's not to say that he doesn't have any experience governing whatsoever. I think he's trying to find his footing, just making sure that he has a good grasp on, like you said, making sure that the city's budget is, totally fiscally solvent. He has been out talking about making sure that the city's workforce is coming back into offices to try to revive the economy, at least before COVID levels, but we're struggling with that. And we're actually seeing our COVID levels. I mean, they're marginally increasing. Just correct me if I'm wrong, but they're starting to increase a little bit. And there's a little bit of anxiety in terms of, well, is Adams inclined to, kick back restrictions or not? It doesn't look like he wants to do that. So there's that. And you also talked about his relationship with Albany a little bit. I mean, he has to go to Albany for a lot of things. And previously on the last episode of New York City, we saw how Bill de Blasio and then Governor Andrew Cuomo, they had a rivalry that completely just froze up, I feel like anything, in the city. And at least it looks like Adams and Governor Kathy Hochul have a working relationship. So how much of a coalition does Adams have here to really get anything passed? I mean, fine, we're not getting a clear-cut, concrete first-year legacy item here, but does he have even a coalition to get something off the ground as of right now?
Look, not in Albany, which did kind of surprise me. I thought that he would be coming in as a first-year mayor, somebody who would be a very helpful endorsement for Governor Hochul. And I thought Adams was going to get whatever the heck he wanted in Albany. That was a bad prediction. It seems like he came in maybe too confident, thought he had more support than he did. And the legislators didn't like his approach. I mean, that's all the reporting. That's from a little bit of what I've heard and certainly a lot of what I've read. And, he got some things passed, to be clear. There was like an earned income tax credit extension or something. I'm sorry, I don't know the exact details on that.
Not the sexy stuff. Not the sexy stuff.
Yeah, not the sexy stuff. He wanted to extend the 421A program. Very sexy. We're talking about tax credits to build affordable housing in luxury buildings. He wanted that, didn't get it passed. He wanted, dangerousness standard for judges, a sort of a bail adjustment, didn't get that. Wanted a longer extension for mayoral control, didn't get that. He got a little one, just a short one. Again, yeah, I really thought he would be coming up to Albany. A former state senator as well, who worked up in Albany for like 7 years. Just didn't get it. Just didn't get a lot of what he wanted. I think that's going to be something that his intergovernmental team is working on a lot over the 6 months where Albany is not in session, and going to really try and hit the ground running come 2023, presumably with a Democratic governor and Kathy Hochul still reelected in this deep blue state. Lord knows what's going to happen if Zeldin gets elected governor, if the Republican gets elected.
We're going to need you to come back onto the show to explain a couple of things if that happens.
Some would argue that, Adams worked well with the Republicans and, they'd find a partner in it. But I think it's much better for him status quo to maintain the current governor. So that's definitely an area to watch going into 2023. There's a lot to change for the mayor. He's got at least another 3.5 years as mayor. So we're going to see many storylines.
So what is it about his approach that's rubbing people the wrong way? Like you said, he's receiving a cold shoulder up there in Albany. And look, how can you say no to the mayor of Swagger? What's going on there?
That's what I wonder. I wonder if it is something about, coming in with too much confidence or something, whether it's from the mayor himself or even just from his team kind of expecting that they're going to get what they want. That's just kind of my theory. I don't know the specifics of what exactly went wrong here. To be clear, some of the things he was pitching were very difficult, very politically controversial, such as that dangerousness standard for judges regarding setting bail. That's been something that also Cuomo pushed for and de Blasio pushed for, and they didn't get it. So this isn't, that wasn't just a failure of Adams. And look, he still did get an extension to mayoral control. So it's not like he totally fell flat on his face in Albany. Let's be clear here, but certainly didn't get everything he wanted. And I think it might have been going in with too much confidence and not working within the rules that Albany has set, for better or for worse. Most people are not quite happy with the way that state government works up there. And, I think the mayor might be the latest one to have a complaint about the way things are.
And it's a wake-up call for him for sure. I imagine, considering the amount of confidence, like you said, he thought that he would come in and place a lot of change into the system, which, look, it's a good thing he did that. It's a lot of optimism, and voters need optimism. The public needs optimism, especially after COVID, especially since crime was increasing way before he started even campaigning. So I get where he's coming from with that, but we can't ignore the factionalism that's been exacerbated a little bit since he's been elected. Even here in New York City, we're seeing him kind of make unnecessary moves into the Brooklyn Democratic Party even. And huge disclosure to the listeners here, I am the legal director for the Brooklyn Young Democrats, but I am acting. I have my 25th hour host hat on for this one. So we're objectively talking about how Adams' moves are being, let's say, accepted, or how they're being analyzed by his fellow Democrats, even here in Kings County. What's your take on that?
Yeah, look, I've written a lot about Brooklyn politics with the Democratic Party and all of these races. I pay a lot of attention to the mayor's political game, who he's endorsing, who he's giving money to, that sort of thing. I find it to be very interesting. And here's another one where the mayor might have gone in with too much confidence, or I guess at the very least, the mayor didn't take on any very tough political fights. I'll give him credit. His 2021 primary was an incredibly difficult political fight, and he came out on top there. So, the guy knows politics, or at least he hires people who certainly know politics. He was elected mayor of New York City. But, if we're looking just at a few of the endorsements that he made this cycle, We're talking about Nikki Lucas, assembly member. We're talking about Hercules Reed. We're talking about Brian Cunningham. We're talking about Renee Collymore. I'm just naming random names here, I guess. And really, there's no common thread in there either, because some of them won, some of them lost. That's the thing. I guess the broad point here is that the mayor didn't actually get too deeply involved with any of them, as far as I could tell. He did hold a press conference for Hercules Reed, who then proceeded to get crushed in the election. That was really a mark of loyalty for Adams, to be clear. Hercules, an assembly candidate in Brownsville, he'd worked for Mayor Adams for, gosh, like about 3 or 4 years now. A loyal aide came with him from Brooklyn Borough Hall to the campaign to City Hall. So Adams endorsing him, I think a lot of people took that as, like he was there for somebody who had been there for him. And I don't think he was like working too hard, pulling strings to really make him win. But then there were other elections like Nikki Lucas, an assembly member who was facing a DSA-backed candidate in Karan Allen. And Nikki Lucas won easily in a landslide. And, she didn't need the mayor's help there, to be clear. So again, I'm just kind of naming random races here without a through line. I'm paying a lot of attention, I guess, to what the mayor's doing, but I don't think we've seen yet the Adams manifesto, the political manifesto. I guess the one through line, to be clear, the one consistent thing here is that all of the political candidates that Adams supported were running against progressive working families party backed candidates. The mayor has been relatively careful about his words. Last year in the summer, he was caught on tape at a fundraiser criticizing Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And he was saying the DSA wants to get me down. And that story is still referenced now, a year later, because that was like the one time when he made it clear. Everything else has been a little more subtle. Look, we know that the mayor doesn't get along with progressives, and we know the mayor isn't a progressive, and we know the progressives don't like the mayor, and WFP doesn't like the mayor. They ran against him. So interesting thing to watch there, where Adams is really running against the progressive movement.
Yeah, and he, as a former Republican as well, I mean, Mayor Adams is definitely trying to put on a new front for the Democratic Party. I mean, he's saying he's the new face of the Democratic Party, and it's a moderate face, I feel like. So just to close us out here, look, I mean, we're coming up on month 8. How do you see the trajectory going for the Adams administration? I mean, are there any political trends that you're keeping an eye on in the future for Mayor Adams? Is it just more pro safety policies, something else?
I am interested to see if he becomes more of a national figure. We've seen him dipping his toe in that. Just this week, he appeared on Good Morning America, or maybe it was the Today Show, one of those national morning shows with a number of other Black mayors to talk about tackling gun violence. We saw him pitching to the Democratic National Convention, wanting to host it in 2024. That would be a real feather in his cap. It would say, I'm the mayor of, in front of all the Democrats. We've seen him appear with Joe Biden a few times. So yes, he's been dipping his toes in that. It will be interesting to see if he goes all out and tries to do like a national tour, or tries to get involved the way that Bill de Blasio did in his first few years as mayor. So that's on one side. On the other hand, look, I do wonder if the Adams administration is going to start narrowing down, making a couple of big programs to focus on, really highlighting some things, trying to make something into their universal pre-K, even if it's not as big, not as expansive. You can play something up and make it feel like this is defining the administration. Because look, right now, at this point, I think if you talk to most people, his administration is defined by trying to tackle gun violence, and then also keeping the city open and not doing any coronavirus regulations, and talking about going out and spending money and you should go back to your offices and that sort of thing. Both of these are, I guess, to put it simply, frustrating topics for a lot of people. And it will be interesting to see if he tries to, focus a little more on something like preschool
Right.
that's a little more universally accepted as,
Right.
hey, that's a great thing.
Seems like it's a little bit of a safe thing for him to tread on if all else fails. Well, we'll see. We'll see. So, Jeff, thank you so much for coming back to the show. We hope to have you back on again if if anything else changes. You are a absolutely welcome guest for the 25th hour.
Things are always changing. I appreciate you listening to my disordered thoughts about our disordered mayor of New York City. So thank you, Dennis.
It's more orderly than you think, Jeff. Ladies and gentlemen, look out for Jeff Coltin's articles in City and State. He also is one of the foremost voices on the Adams administration. So he is very, very big to watch. Okay. And that's it for this week's show of the 25th hour, helping you stay on top of the 24/7 news cycle. Don't forget to rate us wherever you get your podcasts, share us with your friends, and subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can email your tips and suggestions at the 25th hour news at gmail.com and become a patron today to support the show at patreon.com/the 25th hour news. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.